You're watching Eduvidd Talks, online CPD webinars for professionals.
Hello everybody, welcome to this session. My name is Jane Stanfield and I'm a health service improvement coach in Southeast Queensland in Australia, should you be happening to check in from somewhere else in the world. I am presenting on behalf of Eduvidd today, CPD for every professional. So I hope that you really enjoy the session. If you're sitting by yourself, I hope you've got yourself a nice cup of coffee or wine or whatever it might be that you do your CPD to. If you're practicing in a group or you have a group of colleagues with you, I would love to really encourage you to pause every so often and have a conversation about some of the questions I'm putting to you. The session will go for approximately 1 hour. It is in 2 segments, however, so you're absolutely able to stop it at half an hour, and I will give you a little message about when that's possible to either hold a conversation and come back at another time, or to split them and do them, say, 1 week apart, which will give you the opportunity to be able to absorb and maybe have some further conversations about it. One of the issues about learning from online is that a big part of our learning occurs in conversation and in reaction to what is going on. So I would encourage you to, as far as you can, have these conversations. They might be in your own mind. If you're by yourself, they might be with colleagues, as I said. Notice your reactions to the concepts, and is there something there that you could learn? And then maybe just have a play with them or play your edge, if you like, as you move forward into seeing if these concepts are actually fit to where you're working. So this afternoon, what we'll be talking about, or it might not be afternoon with you, what we will be talking about is the trend lately of generational labels. And we're talking about diversity and inclusion is hot topic at the moment. So do these generational labels help us with diversity and inclusion, or is it possible that these generational labels actually create more division and exclusion? And if so, how do we use them as a tool that serves our purpose and not one that hinders our purpose? In the back, and let's start our conversation. In the first instance, maybe just notice though for yourself already, is there a bit of a little response there? Where are you leaning to already in what this labeling of generations might do? Are you comfortable with the labeling of your generation? Are you comfortable with the generalizing of what is said about you as people or as a person as a result of this? And has it served you as an individual well in terms of your connections with other people, or the tasks and roles and credibility that you wish to bring to work? Just hold these as we move forward and have a little think about some of these. So the first question might be, if there's some doubt about them, why has it flown so quickly and become established as part of our cultural narrative so rapidly and potentially so deeply in some environments? And I think when you look at the nature of humanity as a result of that, we find that there are a few reasons that humans might actually do this. And of course, the first one is that the brain actually likes orders and systems. Humans do not do well in chaos. We're not comfortable in chaos. We're not comfortable with uncertainty and the unknown. Now, there's a little paragraph on the side that says, if I have selected the uncertainty, I have selected the unknown, and I have some control into moving into that uncertainty and unknown, my brain is potentially more comfortable with it, or even stimulated by it in a positive way. But if we're talking human nature on the whole, we like to know where things belong, where I fit in the scheme of things, and what it is that's expected of me. That is what's most comfortable for me to live my life or to perform my role at work. The other thing is that we all accrue over a lifetime a whole plethora of cognitive biases. Now, again, this can and has been given a bit of a bad name depending on the context in which people use it. But there's absolutely nothing inherently wrong with bias. In fact, again, it is the way humans and human nature and human cultures have survived for millennia. So we have certain experiences and they blend into a message in our brain, a heuristic, if you like, a natural pattern or way of being or exploring or experiencing our world that happens because of a result, say, of the experiences that we've had. Now, the most straightforward one that I might do here that creates minimal offense might be that through the years, my brain has noticed that I need to speak a little bit louder to people who look a little bit older. Now, that may or may not be correct, but it is the experience I have had through my family, culture, and community. And so I do it, not because I have an evil cognitive bias that patronizes older people, but because in my experience, it's easier for me to connect with them if I'm speaking more clearly and at a higher volume. But as we all know, for the individual, that may or may not be the correct bias. So one of the keys to shifting our biases and being able to work proactively with them and use them to the benefit of our team and our society is to become aware of them, so that every time I begin to implement one of my biases quite naturally, and often without even realizing I'm doing it, I am able to make some sort of conscious decisions about it. So when we're talking about generations, you can begin to see how very quickly the brain would love to package us into order and systems and to throw a few natural cognitive biases our way about what we can expect in terms of how people behave or how they deliver. But you're beginning, I'm hoping, to already understand the need for caution around that. The other interesting one, and again, it's one that works for us, so we don't want to discourage it necessarily. We just want to be aware about it and make a conscious choice to build a culture in this direction. But of course, there's a social importance or a sense of social certainty that occurs when I belong to a specific and defined group. So in a workplace, it might actually bring me some comfort to be able to say, I'm a millennial, beg your pardon, and roll my eyes about others in the group, or I'm a boomer. What would you expect from the other one? So it gives us a sense of status, of power, and of belonging. And all of those are positive for human well-being. So they have a very strong draw. And finally, last but probably not least, is it's been trendy. Any conference I've been to in the last probably 10 years that's discussing management or leadership will have a healthy dose of generational labeling in there, and possibly with the effect of connecting people socially and giving people a bit of a laugh. But I just think, as I keep saying, that we need to do this consciously and bear in mind that there might be some downsides if we're looking at that, and some reasonably serious ones when we consider healthcare and evidence-based practice. So watch this space. So get us all on a baseline. What actually is a generation? Well, no surprises, and most of us could give a lay definition of that if we were asked. But of course, it's a group of similarly aged people who have experienced common historical events. So that absolutely will give them something in common. So certainly as we look at, the millennial bug, there were people who were already in management and doing preparations when we were concerned that as Y2K rolled over, we would lose all our internet and computer services. And we know what happened with that. But that gave people a common experience. The pandemic that we are currently experiencing around the world, no doubt, will be part of a significant part of generations to come and the stories that they might tell. And there is no doubt that different generations, people of different ages and eras, are experiencing this quite differently. Can you imagine the horror of being someone in your 80s and 90s who's been perfectly competent and is currently perfectly competent and able to live your life, but knowing that at any moment this illness might strike? At the same time, people perhaps aged in their 20s and 30s who have the good fortune of feeling and being healthy in body and maybe mind are probably feeling, having a different experience of this pandemic. And we are also currently seeing that in terms of responses and collaboration for the community as a whole. So a generation, a group of similarly aged people who experience common historical events. Or, as I just really, I guess, padded out, cohorts of people based on a shared experience at similar ages. So we're all having the shared experience of a pandemic. The experience we're having at different ages might be different in terms of the history and the story and the narrative and the impact that we take with us into the future. So what are we dealing with as well? Getting us on the common ground. Currently, if we must, there are about 5 that we commonly allude to and label. And you'll be familiar with them. I'll let you scan down the slide as you look at it there. Traditionalists, baby boomers, Gen X, Gen Y, also known as millennials, and Gen Z, born 2001 to the present. They didn't even experience Y2K, and they've never lived without emails. So that starts to give you an idea. Now I'm just going to put up next, and here's our little exercise. Feel free to pause the video so that you can have a proper look at this and take your time with it. But here are some of the characteristics that are classically associated with those generations. So what I would love you to do, and it really is worth taking the time to do this, is just press pause. And if you've got your note paper or your iPad or whatever you're taking your notes on handy, then I just want you to document which of these relate to you personally and which relate to the cohort of people you would classically consider to be in your generation. Just take a minute or two. And just as you do it as well, notice, is there some humor in the room? Does it feel funny to you? Does it give you that sense of connection to others? Or is there a sense of discomfort in the fact that people around you would perceive you to have one of these characteristics, which may or may not be accurate to you as an individual? So the next bit of the exercise that I'd like you to do, and again, I'll invite you to pause and look at this properly. And if you're in a group, have a conversation. If you're individual, just check the list that you've put together. But here actually is who they relate to. So this is the answer sheet, if you like. And you'll see I've just put Gen X, Gen B is the baby boomers, Y or millennials, Z, etc. I think it's fairly obvious there. Cynical and narcissistic, I've left a couple of question marks. I think we can all guess about that one, and I think it would be incredibly remiss of us to label one generation as having those qualities and not take a close look at whatever generation we may belong to, if that is the case. The very fact that we are probably using the label in the classic way the label is used would indicate to me that we're a little bit cynical and narcissistic. So I think it goes for everybody. But have a look. I'll just give you a little bit of time there as well to check out. I can see I'm covering the respect for rules. If my screen comes up in the same place as yours, that is classically associated with traditionalists. All right. Now, what I love to do when I've got a room full of people here is to ask the people who ticked every box that accurately describes their generation and didn't tick any of the boxes that are not listed as being part of their generation to stand up or to raise their hands. Have a guess at what proportion of people find that they tick the boxes exactly. In the environments that I have done this, I have had one person out of 60 or 70, and I think I had 3 people in a group of 100. So classically, we are probably talking less than 3% of us. That's hardly strong randomized controlled client evidence based, but I think it is well worth considering when you look at this. And I would be so curious to know what you have identified when you go there. But needless to say, the tidy boxing and systems of people that apparently our brains prefer seem to be quite seriously inaccurate when we're starting to look at some of the classic descriptors that happen around generational labeling.